Hello.
Hello.
Happy Tuesday.
Yes, Tuesday already.
Yeah.
Hello.
If you've never seen us before, I'm Lisa.
I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jamie. And unfortunately, there's no Bon Jovi.
Yeah, no, there's no Bon Jovi.
No.
I wonder where I got it from. Yeah. And we are red, white, and blue today. Completely unplanned, but we ended up being red, white, and blue. So, yeah.
Pretty close.
Well, it's actually red, light blue, and purple, but you wouldn't know. That's actually purple. This is purple.
I know it's looks like a royal blue, I think. A little bit of purple in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And in case you're wondering why there is a horse on my cover,
you'll find out.
Ask Jamie, because I didn't know either. Jamie, why is there a horse on my cover?
Well, without giving it away, during the research, there was a horse mentioned. I thought that would look quite good.
It's not like a big thing. It was like randomly a horse was mentioned in a tiny fraction of the research. So Jamie put a horse on the cover.
And
it may have been a tiny fraction, but it left an impact.
And that's what he remembered from the research, a random horse fact.
Horse.
So keep your eye out for the horse thing.
Yeah.
That's like, not even worth mentioning.
Yeah, so it wasn't even worth. I don't know why you remembered that.
I told you, because it left an impact. It did on me.
I couldn't even remember it. I was like, why is there a horse on my cover? Anyway, yeah. This episode is called Bad Medicine. There are other names I would like to call it, but it probably would have got the video banned before we even went live. So Bad Medicine it is. Apparently that's got something to do with Bon Jovi as well. I knew I'd heard it somewhere before. And nay, XP, nay. So shall we just jump right in?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get going.
Like a horse.
Like a horse jumping over a fence, yeah. Right, so throughout human history, mankind has been plagued, literally, by illness and disease.
See what you did there.
Oh, by the way, Jamie's not reading today. He's informed me that he's not reading today because there's medical words, and he says you can't even say them, which is rude. But I can't, but that's no need to point it out. So he's not reading today.
They'll get a couple of laughs out of it because some of them are going to be very difficult for me to pronounce.
I really can't say them, but he's not even going to try. So anyway, humanity throughout history has been plagued by illness and disease. And as humanity has evolved, they have continually searched for remedies and cures to these ailments. In the past, some of these cures were ridiculously dangerous and often did more harm than good. Oftentimes, that was due to a lack of knowledge to the dangers surrounding the things they were using. Other times, though, it can't even wrap my head round whoever first initiated these curatives, where they got the idea from to try some of the bizarre bullshit, basically, that they tried.
Probably the same person who tried to drink animal milk, as we've said before, as well, because that's really random like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So we're going to go over a couple of the things in the ancient past and the not so distant past that they used as medicine before we get into modern medicine, just to give you an idea. So first of all, trepanning. You might have heard of trepanning. If you've not, you're going to get a little education. It was an ancient surgical procedure that involved literally drilling into the head of a patient while they were awake, by the way. No anaesthetic, nothing. Get your drill out. It was probably a hand drill because it was in ancient times. I'm sure they didn't have a plug. And they'd drill into their head.
Drill into their head.
One of them drills. There's a name for them, but I can't remember what they're called.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
A brodle or something. Maybe not.
Bridle.
Yeah.
Let's just say a hand drill.
Yeah. Hand drill. It's a hand drill, basically. And they were drilling into their head without any anaesthesia, no sterile equipment, in an attempt to cure headaches. This was before they had paracetamol. Also, it was supposed to cure seizures and mental disorders. It kind of worked, though. It really did kind of work. The patients no longer had headaches. Well, they no longer suffered from seizures, and they no longer had mental disorders, mainly because they were dead. They died either immediately or due to complications and infection from this surgery.
Well, then you have to wonder, how many times did they attempt this before they figured out? I'm like,
they kept doing it.
Yeah.
They have actually found, though, a couple of remains of ancient peoples in different places around the world that had been trepanned and had obviously survived because there's signs of healing.
Really?
Mm.
You have to wonder what
probably
state.
brain damaged or something because they're just hand drilling into whatever.
I was just going to say, you have to wonder what kind of state they were in if they were survived that kind of a procedure.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Yeah.
pass you over to Danielle to find out more bullshit they done in the ancient past.
Well, in medieval Europe, they made a medicine called mummy powder, which had nothing to do with motherhood. So it's not the mommy, it's
Didn't
the
have
mummy.
baby powder.
It was a powder made from the ground down bodies of the dead, aka mummies.
As you do. As you do.
It was believed to have therapeutic properties and it was used to attempt to cure a variety of ailments ranging from headaches to digestion. There must have been a lot of headaches back in the day.
Yeah.
They're probably banging
No
their head against.
no wonder they've all been drilled in the head.
They're probably banging their heads against the walls like these medical
Right?
practitioners giving them stupid medicines. Yeah.
So this mummy powder, like I said, it was attempted to cure ailments ranging from headaches to digestive problems, but needless to say, it did absolutely nothing to cure any ailments. But people at the time genuinely believed mummies had special healing powers. So perhaps the placebo effect kicked in making them believe that, it was working somehow for them. And then
I must have done because you get that with like trials. Even like today, people will just get like something that's got nothing in it, probably just like a vitamin, and then it gets cured, whatever. But they've not had nothing.
Oh, there's definitely some science behind the placebo effect, but all in all, we know how that works. So, in many ancient cultures, from Egypt and Greece to India and China, it was once believed that drinking urine had therapeutic properties, and it was used as a treatment to a variety of issues. Drinking one's own piss or someone else's is beyond vile.
Worse. Is it
worse drinking somebody else's?
Can you make a
Or is it just all as bad?
Yeah. But these are excellent examples of humanity's trust, in what the so-called experts of their time said, right? They were just, the experts said it, so it must be true. Let's try it.
Never change.
No. Mercury, of all things, mercury was popular medical treatment from ancient times until recently. And it was used by ancient Persians and Greeks as an ointment and by Chinese alchemists for its supposed ability to increase the lifespan and vitality. Mercury was also...
I bet it didn't.
You think? What do we know now?
It was actually used until the 20th century. It was still being used.
It was used in
dentistry, weren't they, as well?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Immunizations and things like that, yeah. So mercury was also used to treat syphilis in the form of mercury rubs and was a key ingredient in many patent medicines. However, it is now known to be highly toxic, of course, and cause serious health problems, including kidney damage and neurological symptoms. So heavy metal for sure.
Mm-hmm. Arsenic. That's another one. Yeah, arsenic was a key ingredient in many patent medicines. And when I say patent, they're called patent medicines, but they didn't actually have patents. That's just what they called them. That was including something called Fowler solution, which I've got a picture of. Here's a Fowler solution. Apparently that was made in Wisconsin by Wisconsin Pharmaceuticals. And it's got arsenic in it, as you do.
Okay.
This was apparently a cure for malaria and syphilis. So apparently they had a lot of headaches and syphilis back in the day. And it was used in this form from the late 18th century until the 1950s. So not really that long ago, to be honest. While it was actually effective in treating these diseases, it was also highly toxic and obviously led to arsenic poisoning, which can kill you. So,
amazing. When they use it in beauty,
just say no.
Nightshade as well. Nightshade is a poisonous plant, as we all know today, that was used as a painkiller and an anesthesia in ancient times. But apparently not as an anesthesia when they were droned into your head, because they've done that without any anesthesia. It contains alkaloids that can have a sedative effect, but it's also highly toxic and can cause serious health problems, including, but not limited to, hallucinations, confusion, and death.
That's all I needed to hear.
You think they just pick like these things what are dodgy, like on purpose? Like, so just see who'll buy it and actually use it. Let's just test it and just see what happens.
Let's just see if they'll take arsenic and nightshade. Let's just see.
So many other things they could have used.
And then we've got a book now called This has got a really long name. This book. It's called Dr. Thomas Jefferson Ritter's Mother's Remedies: Over 1,000 Tried and Tested Remedies from Mothers of the United States and Canada. And that's just the title of the book. It was published in 1910, and it probably had a massive cover to fit all that shit on. It contains quite a few remedies that have been phased out for obvious reasons, if you actually look at some of them. And one of their remedies is for hay fever. And this is what it is, everybody. It's amazing. And it might have helped, but whatever. It involved spraying a 4% solution of cocaine up your nose. So just shoving cocaine up your nose to...
Bye-bye headache.
Yeah.
That was relatively normal back then. Cocaine was prescribed for indigestion, fatigue, eye pain, and dun 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 hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids, everybody. I don't know if that was a suppository, but
or a little spray.
A little spray down below.
I think it's interesting that the name of the book is Tried and Tested. It doesn't say whether it was
successful.
Effective. It doesn't say
they're
if
not
it worked.
effective. We've tried them.
And we've tested
So we're
them.
going to put it in a book. We tried this. I had hay fever and I had some cocaine, so I'm going to add it to my book.
Yeah.
So between the mid-1800s and the early 1900s, 25 cents, bargain, could get you a bottle of something called Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. And this was for your baby.
God.
So if your baby had colic, teething problems, diarrhea, or any pain whatsoever, you went out, you had 25 cents in your pocket and bought some Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. And it actually worked on all of these things. However, you want to know why it worked? Because it contained a massive, massive amount of morphine, a shitload of morphine, which isn't the best thing to keep pumping into your baby, to be honest. So, you can go out for 25 cents and get a bottle of morphine that was to treat your baby.
Wow.
Just think, that must have been a mess, just looking at people going around with holes in their heads.
Yeah, you wonder why they didn't live very long in the past. This is why.
This is why.
This right here. That's why.
No kidding. Morphine on babies that were otherwise healthy. They just, wow.
Well, it stopped them getting teething problems and colic, apparently, but they were a bit high.
Poor thing.
Danielle Elvis, tell us about the ancient Egyptians.
The ancient Egyptians had a remarkably well-organized medical system, apparently, complete with doctors who specialized in...
It was well organized, but it was shit.
Complete with doctors who specialized in healing specific ailments. Nevertheless, the cures they prescribed were always up to snuff.
Wasn't always up to snuff, exactly. This is because they used things like lizard blood, as you do,
dead mice, mud, and moldy bread were all used as topical ointments and dressings. And women were sometimes, here we go, and you wonder why they all had headaches. And this is also, and women were sometimes dosed with horse saliva.
There you go.
There's a horse. There's the random. That's the only time it gets mentioned.
It's a cure for impaired libido.
That's the only time it gets mentioned, but that warranted Jamie putting it on the cover.
I wonder who tried that and
why horse saliva? I mean, isn't the whole thing? I mean, isn't it rabbits that go at it? Why would they be using a horse's?
Yeah, but why? The whole research that I did, is that the thing that you remembered and put on my cover?
Because the horses are funny. They look funny in the face. They look common.
Yeah, so that's the. We're not going to mention horses again. That's it.
All right. Well, most disgusting of all, was Egyptian physicians used human and animal excrement as a cure-all remedy for diseases and injuries. And if you remember one of our previous episodes, they also used excrement as birth control.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, they're shoving shit everywhere.
Yeah.
You must have had a lot of shit lying about.
Looking for a way to get rid of it? This is what we'll try.
How are we going to utilize all this shit? Huh?
Yeah.
Let's just shove it up there.
No, you want to go back there. Don't go back there. According to 1500 BC's Eber's papyrus, donkey, dog, gazelle, and fly dung were all celebrated for their healing properties and their ability to ward off bad spirits.
Who's going around collecting the fly dung?
And how do you, yeah. It didn't ward off bad spirits. It smelled, so they probably ward off everything and anything.
Yeah. You smell like shit, so I'm not coming near you.
There might be something in this.
Do what?
Really?
No, I'm going to be in defense.
Why are you defending it?
Right, because apparently what I've heard before is there's something in the colon or something that sheds, and some of that has healing properties. And even today, that's what they claim. But then again, it might be just another load of shit. But that's what I've heard before.
Oh, I think that has something to do with stem cells in the in the intestines, the lower colon and intestines and stuff like that, for like the good bacteria and stuff like that.
I've heard something like that. Yeah, there's something in shit.
But you can't defend that at all.
No. Some things we just don't want to know about them. No. Don't tell me what you're gonna do. Just
did they have did they actually employ people to go around looking for fly shit?
I don't know how you can even fly. Well, yeah. So suffering from persistent headaches, muscle cramps, or stomach ulcers?
Well, apparently, yes. If you were in ancient times, you always had a headache.
Yeah. Once upon a time, your local physician may have prescribed an elixir containing human flesh, blood, or bone. So-called corpse medicine was a disturbingly common practice for hundreds of years. The Romans believed that the blood of fallen gladiators could cure epilepsy. Why epilepsy? Meanwhile, in the 17th century England, King Charles II was known for enjoying a draught of King's Drops, a restorative brew made from crumbled human skull and alcohol.
Is that it as well? Mind you, it doesn't surprise me the royals eating skulls or something. So
these people are crazy,
mark, is it?
Well, we know there's a specific form of illness that comes from cannibalistic behavior that the royals are kind of known for.
Yeah.
So these cannibalistic medicines were thought to have magical properties, apparently, and
they didn't.
And by consuming the remains of a deceased person, the patient also ingested part of their spirit, was what they were leading to. So leading to increased vitality.
Up the nose, I think.
Do what?
There's too much cocaine up their noses from earlier, I think.
Yeah, in other areas, apparently.
Yeah.
So this, again, was supposed to lead to increased vitality and well-being. And the type of cure prescribed usually corresponded to the type of the ailment. So skull was used for migraines and human fat for muscle aches and things like that. But getting fresh steak could be a gruesome process.
Fresh stock.
I read steak.
Yeah.
Fresh steak.
Danielle wants a steak.
That's funny. I do. Was that like a Freudian slip?
Yeah.
Okay. Getting fresh stock. Go out and find some fresh meat, right? That could be a gruesome process indeed. So in some cases, the sickly would even attend executions. Like, let's go see an execution today in the hopes of getting a cheap cup of freshly killed person's blood.
So that means that there was somebody selling it. It's always about bloody profiteering this shit.
I picture like when they gut a deer or a pig or something and they bleed it, and it's like these people just
sitting there with their little cups open.
Yeah, that's so.
Can I have some more? Weirdos. So in ancient Greece, doctors believe this is weird. Brace yourself.
Like none of the
none of this is, yeah. Compared to the other stuff, this is just like So, ancient Greece, doctors believed that a woman's womb was a separate creature, an actual creature with a mind of its own. According to the writings of Plato, you've all heard of Plato and Hippocrates or Hippocrates? I don't know. Is it Hippocrates?
Yeah.
Hippocrates, who are quite famous. So they actually wrote this shit down, right? When a woman was celibate for an extended period of time, her uterus, described as a living animal, and it was eager to bear children, would dislodge itself and freely glide around her body, just like, whatever.
What?
Yeah, we're not having babies, so let's go for a walk. So the uterus is off on a wander. Yeah. According to Plato and Hippocrates. And it could cause you to suffocate, it could cause seizures, and it could cause hysteria because, like, it gets into your brain, gets into your lungs.
What?
This is what they actually believe.
What?
So this curious diagnosis actually endured in some form into the time of the Romans and the Byzantines, well after doctors had actually learned that the womb was actually held in place by ligaments and didn't go for a wander, but they still diagnosed this. To prevent the wombs from basically going walkabout, ancient women were counselled to marry young and bear as many children as possible. Oh no, my uterus is in my... Yeah, exactly, Kelly. So it might just been like... To me, it sounds like the men are just wanting to have sex. Like, you need to marry young and have multiple children, or your uterus is going to go for a walk.
Oh my gosh! Like,
so they were told to do this, and for a womb that had already broken free because you didn't have sex quickly enough. So if your womb's broken free and is off for a wander, doctors back in the day prescribed therapeutic baths, infusions, and physical massages to try and force it back into place.
Oh my God.
They might even fumigate the patient's head with sulfur and pitch. So they're fumigating your head with sulfur and pitch, whilst simultaneously at the same time rubbing pleasant smelling lotions between her legs and upper thighs in order to make the uterus, which is went up here, probably in your brain, think, oh, it stinks up here, I'm going back where I belong. What the fuck?
These are coming from the medical experts at the time.
They're putting a horrible smell up here to make it go down and a nice smell up here.
You know, it sounds like something that might have went on at that Kellogg Wellness facility back in the day in Battle Creek, Michigan.
And who? Obviously, Plato and Hippocrates, but what?
I don't even...
What the fuck?
Who decides your uterus could just wander away?
Yeah, that's a creature, and if you don't feed
it
and get pregnant, it's going for a walk.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just you
I
remember
enjoyed that. Yeah, that's why I bet. Yeah, some of these sort of medical practices, they just did it for laughs.
Yeah, they're just having a look. I wonder what they're going to believe this year.
Yeah.
Let's tell them their uterus is going to go for a wander. Yeah. So in ancient Babylon, we're going to Babylon now. Most illnesses were thought to be the result of demonic forces or punishment from the gods for past misdeeds. Doctors often had more in common with priests and exorcists than modern physicians, and their cures usually involved some component of magic.
Oh no, not magic.
Magic, everybody. For example, if a patient ground their teeth, the healer or doctor, or whatever they were called at the time, would suspect that the reason they're grinding their teeth is because the ghost of a deceased family member was trying to communicate with them while they were sleeping. And the cure for this is amazing. So if you grind your teeth, bear this in mind. All you've got to do is find a skull, a human skull.
Just find one.
Just once you've got a human skull, you've got to sleep next to it for a week. Like put it on your pillow.
Oh no, I won't.
Ground with skin. Can that be like a living skull, or has it got to be a bony?
You need a real human skull, corpse. And you put it on your pillow and you sleep beside it for a week, as a way of exorcising the spirit. And to ensure that this treatment worked, to stop you grinding your teeth, you were also instructed to kiss and lick the skull 7 times before you went to sleep.
Oh,
So 7
hell
little,
no.
7 little kisses and 7 licks, and then put it in your pillow and then have a nap.
Nope.
And you stop grinding your teeth.
Nope. Not going to happen.
You stop grinding your teeth.
I would think they'd stay awake for 7 nights just with this thing next to them. They wouldn't sleep.
You're like, oh my God. I'd have a fright if I woke up in the middle of the night. I'd break all my teeth, get a fright. I'd be like, ah!
That's
What the hell is
disgusting.
that?
So, yeah.
No. I wouldn't be able to sleep with anything like that next to me. And then why 7 times? Why lick it? Oh.
I have no idea.
It's funny how far back the 7 times thing goes, though, isn't it? But,
Yeah.
Licking skull, eating skulls. I mean,
These magic numbers. So, all right. So, who here would put a dead mouse in their mouth?
No.
no.
You can't make me. You can't make me, Danielle.
Guess what? Ancient Egyptians did.
Of course they
Of
did.
course
I mean,
they
they were
did.
eating fly shit. Of course they did.
I know. So, the ancient Egyptians did that with the hope that doing so would ease toothache pain, of all things.
See?
Okay, this
I'll
gets
put
a little disturbing, but bear with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to read and try not to think about what I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, mashed mouse was blended with other ingredients, and the resulting poultice was applied to the painful spot. The Egyptians weren't the only ones big on mouse cures, apparently. In Elizabethan England, one remedy for warts was to cut a mouse in half and apply it to the offending spot.
Well, they caused the warts.
Can I just say, I've just spotted 2 things here. First thing is, again, they're trying to get rid of their crap, like we heard earlier. Now they've got probably a lot of mice and rats and things about the place, and we know London did.
No wonder they got the Black Death and the plague.
Exactly.
But there's
Right?
bullshit going on.
Also, you always hear how clever Egyptians were. They didn't build them pyramids. Not if they're doing this.
They were too busy looking for fly shit and putting
Exactly.
half mace in their mouth.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
So the Elizabethans also ate mice. Okay. They fried and baked them in pies. Mice were also used to treat whooping cough, measles, and smallpox, and bedwetting. Yeah. How does it cure bedwetting? I think it would promote bedwetting.
Yeah. Especially if they got a skull on.
I'm having nightmares about getting fed a mouse pie the next
I
day.
know.
Yeah.
But people genuinely did this, and they trusted the so-called experts of their times. You know, they had their own doctor, fraud cheese back then, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck with the next word, Danielle.
Hemoglossectomy.
Oh my god.
Oh,
that
she
was
said
quite.
what?
That was well. Well, I don't know if that's how you say it, but you fucking
Yeah, it
convinced
sounds
Oh,
me.
it's how you
You
say it.
convinced me.
That's how you say it. Trust me. It's a procedure still implemented today and as a treatment for oral cancer. However, in the 18th and 19th century, they weren't trying to treat cancer, and they did it without any anesthesia. So the procedure basically involved cutting off a part of the human tongue. Oh,
no.
and it was used to cure stuttering back in the day. I don't know how that would be.
Yeah. Nobody dares stutter.
Yeah,
they
if you had
don't.
a
Fuck,
stutter,
I
you
can
probably
talk.
just wouldn't talk. You're like,
I
I'm
was
not-
gonna
I'm not
say, how
saying a
could you
word,
even
I'm not-
speak?
I'm not doing it.
Well, needless to say, it didn't work, and the patients normally bled to death and in a huge amount of pain. Can you
But
imagine?
they kept doing it.
That's why
I bet if
that's
you
why I
had a
said about
stutter
the
back in the
drilling.
day, you were terrified to speak. You're probably the one that's wet in the bed because you're thinking,
Yeah.
if I accidentally talk in my sleep,
What's
I'm going to
worse?
cut my tongue off.
What's worse, licking a skull or
Well, what happens if you had this done
And
and you
my
need
tongue
and then
moving.
you need to lick a skull?
No, see, this is why I say, getting back to the whole drilling in the head thing, like they were using these as cures and therapies. How many people did they go through to figure this out?
exactly before the penny clicked? But also, do you think that these doctors and these specialists actually had tested the drilling on themselves first, and that's why they came up with all this other crap afterwards? I don't know.
I doubt
Pretty
it.
weird.
Right, so in the early 1900s, which really is not that long ago, there was a man, I'm going to call him a man, I'm not going to call him a doctor, even though that's what he called himself, called John R. Brinkley. And I believe there's a picture of him. Let me just see. There should be. So disorganized. There he is.
Has he got any holes in his head? Oh my god.
John
Thanks,
Romulus Brinkley.
Okay.
Quite an amazing little pair of spectacles on there. even if I do. Yeah. So he called himself a doctor, but we'll find out that he's not really a doctor. But
A rich one.
he became one of the richest doctors in America, despite having 0 medical qualifications. He'd done a little bit of medical school, but he'd never finished. So he didn't have any qualifications. But he became the richest doctor in America. Because for $75 a go, that is $11,000 in today's money, apparently.
Oh.
He claimed he could cure male impotence. And how he did that is fucking amazing.
Was there like a money back guarantee?
No.
No. Okay.
But you're never going to guess. You're never going to guess.
I don't know. Does it include cutting mice in half or horse saliva?
Yeah,
goats, Daniel.
Goats. Now we're on to goats.
Right.
Now.
So
what about goats?
What he did was he done this surgical procedure, even though he's not got any qualifications whatsoever, and he implanted goat testicles into a man's scrotum.
What?
This surgery clearly, I don't even have to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, had no scientific merit and was extremely dangerous.
Oh
and many of his patients actually died. And as a result of that, he was subject to a plethora of wrongful death lawsuits. However, he had a massive following. He was eventually stripped of his medical license in Kansas. And it tells you this, if you look it up, that he was stripped of his license in Kansas, but I couldn't find out how the fuck he got one in the first place with no qualifications. Yeah. So he'd somehow got a medical license, despite not being trained or qualified, and they eventually took it off him in Kansas. And then he tried to run for mayor, or governor, 2 times. But he was quite popular, and he actually nearly won. And the reason he was quite popular is because of this.
Because of this failed treatment.
Everybody.
Wait, because of this treatment that killed people?
Yeah, but it's the media's fault.
What?
Listen. In 1922, at the invitation of the owner of the Los Angeles Times, Harry Chandler, Brinkley made his way to LA. Chandler had challenged him to do his weird goat ball procedure thing on one of his editors. He didn't challenge him to do it on himself. He's like, yeah, do it to Jim.
Are you sure it wasn't Billy?
I don't know if his name was Jim, but whatever. It might have been Billy.
Billy Goat.
Billy Goat, yeah. And if it was a success, Chandler had told Brinkley that he would make him the most famous surgeon in America, which he kind of did.
For all the wrong reasons.
Not having a license to practice medicine in California wasn't a problem because Chandler pulled some strings and got him a 30-day permit. Again, despite the fact he's got no medical qualifications, he got a 30-day medical license, and the procedure was carried out. And probably because the patient is not one of the ones that immediately died, it was deemed to be a success. We don't know if it actually improved impotence or anything.
I was going to say, we have
he
to
was alive, so it's a success. And therefore, the media, the Los Angeles Times, promoted him. This is amazing. This works. This surgery works. And he got a huge following and loads of people lining up to pay their little $75 and get goat testicles implanted into their scrotum, including some of the Hollywood elite at the time.
Yeah, well, I don't feel sorry for them.
So, however, despite making millions, he made millions doing this, he actually died penniless because of those pesky lawsuits from the families of the patients that he killed along the way with his quack operation, basically. It's quack, innit? This was only 100 years ago, but it's a great example of the power of the media to influence people of the efficacy or safeness of the most bizarre and untested medical procedures. Because the media is telling people that this is great and it works, they're just lining up to get it done.
I just don't even know how they even came up with that.
Yeah, can we keep the testicles on the goats, please?
Can goats keep their own testicles? Thank you. Thank you very much.
I haven't seen goats' testicles. I probably don't want to. I don't think.
Who would even come up with that? Who would think that?
And I have got one of the adverts at the time. I've got one of the adverts because one of the men that was impotent and got the goat's testicles and actually survived, his wife went on to have a child. Now, whether it was his, I'll leave that to you to decide. But she had a child and they actually used this in an advert for the time, and I'm going to show you it because it's fucking stupid.
Please don't tell me it looks like a goat.
Well, you can decide that for yourself. I'm just talking about the way that they've done this advert.
Oh, they did call the child
His first goat gland baby.
Oh my gosh.
They called the child Billy.
Oh my god.
Billy. No way.
Oh, what a
They
claim to
called it
fame.
Billy.
That's the milkman's, wasn't it? Was the milkman back then?
And that's the doctor with Billy, the goat gland baby.
Could you imagine? That poor baby grew up with that name and that claim to fame. No.
Oh my god.
So messed up.
That is.
Well, now we're going to move on to a little bit of like the birth of Big Pharma. Which,
And this is why Jamie's not reading.
this
That's
is like
Big
a
Pharma.
curse word.
No goat's testicles involved. Well, there probably was.
It probably is, to be honest.
Oh, this should be interesting anyway. The modern pharmaceutical industry traces its origins to two sources. Apothecaries. I had it right, and then I stopped myself. Apothecaries that moved into wholesale production of drugs such as morphine, quinine, and strychnine in the middle of the 19th century, and dye and chemical companies, dye, chemical companies, that established research labs and discovered medical applications for their products starting in the 1880s. So Merck, you've heard of Merck, M-E-R-C-K, for example, began as a small
Apothecary.
apothecary.
You not got apothecary cabinets in America.
Yeah, but can't we just call it apothecary?
Is it not apothecary?
So those little cabinets with
You're
all the
weird over there.
drawers.
Like you call it aluminum.
Oh,
Aluminium.
not this.
It's those cabinets with all the little drawers.
Yeah,
All right. Apothecary.
apothecary.
Apothecary shop.
It might be pronounced differently over there because you're weird.
Hey,
Aluminum.
I resemble that.
Garage.
All right. So they began as Merck, for example, began as a small apothecary shop in Darmstadt, Germany in 1668, only beginning wholesale production of drugs in the 1840s. Likewise, Schering in Germany, Hoffmann La Roche in Switzerland, Burroughs Wellcome in England. What are these people? Are these people or places?
That's the names of the companies.
Really? Etienne Poulenc in France, and Abbott Smith Klein, I know that one, Park Davis, Eli Lilly, Squibb, and Upjohn in the US all started as apothecaries and drug suppliers between the early 1830s and late 1890s. Other firms whose names carry recognition today began with the production of organic chemicals, especially dyestuffs, like DYE stuffs. What does that mean?
Well, they were doing like compounds for dyes and actually found a use for it in medicine. So some of the companies were apothecaries and some of them were doing like organic chemicals. And when they found out there was a use for the organic chemical part of it, they sort of merged and became Big Pharma.
Became Big Pharma. All right. So these include Agfa, Bayer, and Hoechst or That's definitely a German.
Hoechst.
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 In Germany. Dang it, Lisa, make me see these.
Oh my God, I'll do it. Hoechst in Germany,
Feige
and Sandans in Switzerland, Imperial Chemical Industries in England, and Pfizer in the US. I could say
those
Pfizer.
I could get.
You're probably not allowed to say Pfizer.
I'm probably going to get banned because I said Pfizer, but I can say that one.
I need like phonetics for these German and France and anyway, those companies is where Big Pharma began.
Yeah. I think there's worse words to come, but I don't know who's getting them. So a merging of these two types of firms into an identifiable pharmaceutical industry took place in conjunction. Yeah, that's what happened.
In conjunction.
Took place in conjunction with the emergence of pharmaceutical chemistry and pharmacology as scientific fields at the end of the 19th century. oriented to identifying and preparing synthetic drugs and studying their impacts on pathological conditions. Both disciplines were intimately linked with the rise of the industry. Pharmaceutical firms, first in Germany in the 1880s and more recently in the US and England, and we'll find out, I probably think we'll tell you later why that is, because it was like quite, everything was really done in Germany until the outbreak of the war, where America and England had to come up with their own practices because they were getting it from Germany, and obviously there was embargoes and whatever, but most of it was done in Germany prior to World War One. They formed cooperative relationships with academic labs. The resultant exchange of research methods and findings drove a focus on dyes, immune antibodies, and other physiologically active agents that would react with disease-causing organisms. Postulated by Paul Ehrlich.
Aha.
Yeah, that might not be his name, but that is today. In 1906, following more than a decade of research, the concept that synthetic chemicals could selectively kill or immobilize parasites, bacteria, and other invasive disease-causing microbes would eventually drive a massive industrial program that continues into the present day. That's Big Pharma.
Big Pharma got too big. All right, so already in the early 19th century, chemists were able to extract and concentrate traditional plant-based remedies, giving rise to treatments such as morphine and quinine. By the start of the 20th century, applying similar methods to animal systems resulted in the isolation of epinephrine, adrenaline, as the first hormone that could be used as a medicine. Meanwhile, synthetic organic chemistry evolved as an industrial discipline, especially in the area of creating dyestuffs derived from coal tar. That's interesting. It was only a short step from staining cells to make them more visible under microscopes to dyeing cells to kill them.
Oh.
Chemists soon modified the raw dyestuffs and their raw dyestuffs and their byproducts to make them more effective as medicines. Early products of research continue to have applications today. For example,
good luck.
N-acetyl. Okay, I take this stuff though.
N-acetyl. What?
Aminophenol.
Shall I put it on the screen?
Aminophenol. Aminophenol.
N-acetyl P-aminophenol.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
The active ingredient in Tylenol and Panadol is a fast-acting metabolite of the analgesics
acetanilide
and
phenacetin.
Created in German laboratories in the 1880s.
Yeah, we sound like we know what we're talking about, don't we?
No, we don't.
Acidadidine and phenomena.
All right, so in 1897, a chemist at Bayer by the name of Felix Hoffmann first synthesized aspirin, another staple of our medicine cabinets. The end of the 19th century also saw the development of several immunizations, including those for tetanus and diphtheria. A theory relating chemical structure to pharmaceutical activity emerged from the interplay of experimental results from animals and human tests using inoculations, antitoxins, and antibodies with chemical knowledge about dyes and their molecular structures. This structure activity theory inspired Ehrlich to pursue a long and systematic course of research that resulted in the anti-syphilitic salvarsan, often considered the first systematically invented therapy. I've never heard of the salvarsan.
What does it mean?
We're doing really well with these words.
They just make up big words because they didn't want to say goat's testicles. And,
I think we're doing really well, and we sound like we know what we're talking about, but that's just me.
Yeah.
When I play it back, I probably think differently, but at the moment...
Yeah, it's like someone in the chat said, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Right, the progressively more important role of the chemist and chemical science in pharmaceuticals in the early 20th century is mirrored in the history of the American Chemical Society's division of medicinal chemistry. A lot of big words. It was founded in 1909 as a division of pharmaceutical chemistry 1 year after ACS instituted a divisional structure. Chemists in the US had gained a new stature and industrial employment due to the requirements for accurate analysis of medicines contained in the 1906 Food and Drugs Act. But US chemists only rarely had the freedom to create new drugs, and relatively few companies manufactured complex therapies. Those activities were largely monopolized, as I said earlier, by German chemists working in conjunction with the major German chemical companies. World War I blockades forced US chemists to replicate German processes for producing drugs such as aspirin, which was all produced in Germany prior to World War I, and things like Salvarsan and something called Veronal, which is a powerful hypnotic used in easing the pain of battle wounds, which I'd never heard of, but yeah.
Well, they needed that, didn't they? Yeah.
So in 1920, the ACS division renamed itself the Division of Medicinal Products to reflect the wartime change in focus from analysis to synthesis, edging even closer to research functions. In 1927, the division took on its present name.
Well, all I can say is I'm glad they got their shit together a bit, because can you imagine being at the battle? Yeah, I've had my arm blown off. Hang on, wait a minute, we've got to find a goat. Where's this horse? Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, all I can say is I'm glad I'm not the one reading these.
I am glad I'm not the one.
And there's a little Merck delivery truck in front of the company headquarters in New York from circa 1908.
Well, all right. So while largely unregulated by government bodies prior to the 20th century, the pharmaceutical industry faced challenges in differentiating its products from patent drug makers whose secret recipes, in fact, were not patented.
Yeah, they just called it that, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Professional bodies, including national physicians, associations, pharmacist groups, and national formularies, which trace their origins to a 1498 pharmacopoeia for the apothecaries of Florence, Italy. They set manufacturing standards and occasionally exposed fallacious claims made concerning medical ingredients, which obviously we're finding out there was false claims everywhere.
Oh yeah.
The development of diphtheria antitoxin.
Yeah, get some goat's testicles implanted, and
yeah. So the development of diphtheria antitoxin in the 1890s and subsequent case of inactive or contaminated doses led the health ministries in Germany and France to test and oversee biologicals. Likewise, the U.S. Hygienic Laboratory was authorized to license manufacturers under the 1902 Biologics Control Act.
So everything's getting government regulated at this stage.
Yeah, because they want in on money.
Yeah, because it's there's money here.
Yeah. So government regulators' authority to remove products from the market or constrain advertising claims, however, was limited in the U.S.
So basically, you've got these big companies, like to just. This is a long-winded way to say it. You've got all these big companies like your Pfizer and your Merck and whatever monopolizing the market, and all your little companies that's like doing their little tonics that didn't work either, by the way.
Right. Snake oil.
They're getting them taken off the market, so that all that's left is their stuff. Now, I've got some of these tonics that are snake oil and they're shit, but a lot of them are natural remedies. They were natural ingredients and they did work, but they got rid of them because they monopolized.
And now they deem them as dangerous or unsafe or untested. But...
And we have talked about like the baby potion that was just morphine. That's just ridiculous. But there was other things on the market, these little tonics and
that
tinctures,
today,
tinctures and things that were just all made with natural ingredients and probably were quite helpful.
Yeah, and that whole strategy just totally set a precedence for what we have now. So larger companies supported additional legislative interventions, including the 1906 Food and Drugs Act in the U.S. and similar laws in several European countries that prohibited adulteration and forced manufacturers to reveal their ingredients on product labels. Nevertheless, At the start of the 1930s, most medicines were sold without a prescription, and nearly half were compounded locally by pharmacists. In many cases, physicians dispensed medicines directly to patients. Companies often supplied physicians with their favorite formulations. While the medical profession was well established in Europe and America, the pharmaceutical industry was only beginning to develop medicines to treat pain, infectious diseases, heart conditions, and other ailments. Direct application of chemical research to medicine appeared promising, but only a few substances, newly isolated vitamins and insulin, were more effective than treatments available at the turn of the century. The industry's position at the crossroads of science, medicine, and growing healthcare markets nevertheless set the stage for explosive growth.
Yeah, so
Indeed
basically
it
they were
did.
coming up with things to treat things, but the things that they already had in place, the natural remedies, were equally as effective, but they got rid of them anyway.
Yeah, but in reality, what they probably done was took them natural remedies that did work and people were using and put them in their own stuff and just relabeled them and renamed them into a big word like, you know, some of these natural ingredients, they changed the words and
Right,
put
so
in their medicine.
at this stage, and this is going to be more than one episode, that's obviously why I've wrote part 1 on it. At this stage, we're going to go on to, can I say the V word?
Yeah, I think, because we're talking about
vaccinations. We're going to go into vaccinations.
Specifically,
I've said it 3 times, so are we still here?
It's like the candy man, you get switched off because you said 3 times, someone's going to stab you in the eyeball.
We've gone over the history of different procedures and the weird things that they've done, and then how the pharmaceutical industry, big pharma, actually came into being and getting rid of all the natural remedies. And now we're going to look at vaccination. In the next episode, we'll look at more like medicines, topical medicines and ingestible medicines, not injectables.
So if we ain't got banned this week, next week.
So if we don't get banned for this one, just you wait till next week. We'll try harder. Right, so first of all, we're going to go over the polio vaccine. Poliomyelitis, or polio, as it's more commonly referred to, is and was a horrific disease. My mum had polio, actually. It initially presents itself with a high temperature, extreme fatigue, headaches, vomiting, a stiff neck, and muscle pain. These symptoms typically last for around 10 days, but can last for up to 21 days. However, in extreme cases, the symptoms are far more serious and can affect your brain and your nerves, leading to weakness and paralysis, normally in the legs of the patient. In my mum's case, she had a problem with one leg in particular, and she had a lot of really painful, this was in like the 1940s, 1950s, painful surgeries to try and graft bones, she ended up with one leg short of another. The surgeries were quite horrific that they done back in the day. So this can happen over a period of hours or days and can leave the patient permanently disabled, and it often did. If the muscle paralysis, however, affected the muscles that were used for breathing, obviously polio became life-threatening in that case. If you didn't know, polio is actually a disease that only presents itself in humans. No other species gets polio.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's actually highly contagious, and it's often contracted by eating contaminated food or drinking contaminated water.
I didn't know that.
Or it's a hygiene thing, because it's done by fecal to mouth transmission. So if you ingest fecal matter on contaminated food or uncontaminated water, that's how you got it.
Wow, I see. I didn't know that.
So in 1950, a man called William Hammond from the University of Pittsburgh purified the gamma globulin component of blood plasma from polio survivors. Hammond proposed that the gamma globulin, which contained antibodies to the polio virus, could be used to halt poliovirus infection, prevent disease, and reduce the severity of disease in other patients who had obviously contracted polio. The results of a large clinical trial that he did were actually very promising. The gamma globulin was shown to be about 80% effective in preventing the development of paralytic poliomyelitis. So it really reduced the likelihood that you're going to get like the severe case of the disease where you end up with paralysis and can actually end up maybe dying or being permanently disabled. It was also shown to reduce the severity of disease in patients who had developed it. Now, due to a limited supply, however, of the blood plasma gamma globulin, that was later deemed to be impractical for widespread use, and the medical community therefore then began focusing on making an inoculation for polio.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to, in 1952, Jonas Salk of the University of Pittsburgh developed that inoculation that we were just talking about, which was announced to the world on April 12, 1955. The Salk vaccine, or inactivated poliovirus vaccine, IPV, is based around the poliovirus grown in monkey kidney tissue culture, which is then chemically activated with formaldehyde, or formalin. Whilst the polio vaccine was miraculous in practically eradicating childhood polio, there were problems for the first 8 years between 1955 and 1963. The jabs given to the children were contaminated with a virus called Simonin virus 40, or SV40. Subsequently, the SV40 virus DNA has been found in multiple biopsy specimens from cancer-suffering patients. For 8 years, every infant was given this drug and injected with the contaminated SV40, and to this day, SV40 DNA shows up in cancer patients. It is argued that the Salk vaccines from 1955 to 1963 are not responsible for the cancers found in patients born after 1963, but the prevalence of these cancers has increased over the years. And if your parents had the contaminated vaccine and you go on to have cancer containing SV40, the medical community doesn't even count that as related, that's absurd.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But it didn't show up before this, and it's shown up since. So,
Right.
Yeah.
2 and 2 normally makes 4.
Well, it used to be that way. The Institute of Medicine safety review state that the Institute of Medicine's safety review do state that they cannot determine whether or not the contaminated jabs caused cancer. So kind of not taking responsibility right there, when the fact remains that this exact strain that was injected into kids for 8 years is still prevalent in cancer DNA to this day.
Yeah.
No responsibility there.
Yeah. On top of the ridiculous fact that it took them 8 years to realize this, 8 years they were injecting this into children.
Yeah.
The initial jabs also posed some issues. In 1955, several lots of the vaccine actually contained live polio virus, leading to at least 250 cases of polio and 10 deaths.
Yeah.
And that's the figures that you've been given.
Yeah, it's a huge controversy. The whole polio.
As for the SV40 contamination, which was injected to around 100 million Americans over that 8-year period, although when you get injected with the SV40, you don't actually become symptomatic that you've got something wrong with you, but you've got the DNA inside of you.
Right.
So it's not like you're injected and suddenly, oh my God, I've got all these symptoms. There's no symptoms. You've just got this cancer-causing SV40 virus in you. To this day, they're distancing themselves from it and denying that there's a link. Since 1960 until this very moment, however, scientists are still studying the relationship between the Salk vaccine, SV40, and cancer. So there's no link. Why are they still studying it over 60 years later if there's no link?
Yeah.
So you could forgive them a little bit. You could forgive them a little bit.
Can I just say
it was a new industry? What?
Can I just say it makes you wonder, doesn't it, when they've been got these issues all that time long ago, and they're still doing studies and things like that. How can they be so confident about more modern medicine?
Well, so yeah,
good point.
Exactly. So look, you could forgive them a little bit had they taken a tiny little bit of responsibility, but they didn't. And due to the fact that this was it was 60, 70 years ago, and it was one of the first mass vaccination programs in the world. And if they had learned from the mistakes, you could forgive them, right? But did they learn from the mistakes? Did they? Did
No.
they? Let's find out, shall we? Let's find out if they learn from the mistakes. Right. We'll start with this one. In 1976, there was an increased risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome following a swine flu vaccine. The incidence was apparently 1 in every 100,000, according to official figures. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. But with over 40 million given, the treatment... Sorry, with over 40 million... Let me start that sentence again. Right. But with over 40 million given the treatment, federal health officials decided that that was 1 in 100,000 too many. So they halted the immunisation. In 2003, an Institute of Medicine review concluded that those who received this shot in 1976 had an increased risk of developing Guillain-Barré. So this happened in 1976, but it wasn't until 2003 that they finally come out and said, yeah, they've got an increased risk. Years later. What the fuck's going on? There are many theories as to why, but the actual reason remains apparently to this day unknown. At least to us. Somebody's bound to know. Just my opinion didn't come from me.
There's the dog.
There's the dog having a drink. Anyway, Guillain-Barré, if you're not aware, is...
Oh no, he's tried some more.
Oh my god!
Just talk over him.
Guillain-Barré is a very serious condition that affects the nerves, mainly the hands, feet and limbs, causing numbness, weakness and pain. And in extreme cases, it can become life-threatening. GBS, which is, I'm going to call it because instead of saying Guillain-Barré all the time, GBS was also reported in many patients who received a meningococcal. Is that right? Meningitis. I'm going to say meningitis.
Yeah.
A meningitis inoculation between 2005 and 2008. But again, later, many years later, studies showed that there was no link, despite the fact that multiple patients developed GBS just after getting this meningitis thing. But there's no link.
You know, bottom line is
there's nothing to say.
Bottom line is stop letting them poke you. No more pokes. You just can't
Danielle,
trust it.
continue. Tell us some more, Danielle. Tell me
Some more. All right. So in France in 1998, there were multiple incidences of patients who received the hepatitis B shot developing multiple sclerosis within a few weeks of being immunized. You know, and it makes you wonder, okay, within a few weeks' time, were they going to deny that too?
Yeah.
It became such an issue that the French government halted the immunization program to investigate. Well, good on the French. All right. Later studies have allegedly found no link between the development of MS and this.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
But clearly there was one, and it was so blatantly obvious that patients were developing MS within such a short time frame that they halted the program.
Yeah.
But now, if you fact checked it to this day, they'll tell you it's pure coincidence.
Coinkydink. It's a coinkydink.
We've heard that, haven't we?
Coinkydink.
Yeah. In 1998, the FDA approved RotaShield, the first immunization to prevent rotavirus gastroenteritis. However, shortly after its licensing, many infants developed a condition called intussusception.
Well done.
Well, thank you.
I'm impressed. I wouldn't have a clue how to say that.
Which is a rare type of bowel obstruction that causes the bowel to fold in on itself. The results of an investigation did find that the RotaShield did cause this, and the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, the ACIP, withdrew its recommendation the following year, after which the manufacturer then apparently voluntarily withdrew it from the market in October of 1998. How voluntarily it was when it was no longer being recommended is another matter. Yeah. Seems they had no choice in the matter.
Yeah. I'm just
making the money.
Voluntarily going to take voluntary. A year later, after you're not recommending it anymore.
But at least they took that action, unlike Anyway,
I can't even. So, in 2010, there was a startling increase in narcolepsy across the UK and Northern Europe. And you can actually look this up on narcolepsy charities, and they'll tell you about it if you're interested. Do you actually know what narcolepsy is? Does everybody know? Do I need to tell
Yes,
people?
they
fall
they
asleep
fall, they,
or-
You just-
yeah, they fall asleep.
It's actually a brain condition that makes you fall asleep, and it can actually cause sleep paralysis as well. And it just
Yeah.
completely destroys your life. Your brain is just giving you all the wrong signals, and you just keep falling asleep all the time. So during the swine flu epidemic of 2009/2010, there was a vaccine called Pandemix that was given to 6 million people in the UK. It was given to high-risk groups, including children, people with asthma, diabetes, and heart disease. The vaccine had been approved by the European Medicines Agency for use across the EU. Despite very minimal clinical trials, it was approved for use. The manufacturer was GlaxoSmithKline, and they were given indemnity by the UK government. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, some 850,000 vaccinations were given to children aged between 6 months and 16 years old. After the pandemic in 2010-2011, a further 170,000 adults and children received the jab when seasonal flu vaccine supplies diminished. So you get your seasonal flu vaccine every year. So they gave you this during this pandemic. And in the following flu season, when they ran out of flu vaccines, they gave 170,000 people this one, which is for swine flu.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the pandemic's over, but they're giving it whatever. Anyway, so the UK Health Protection Agency, which is now called Public Health England, undertook a major study of 4-year-olds to 16-year-olds and found that around 1 in every 55,000 jabs led to narcolepsy.
That's incredible.
There are still campaigns to this day for compensation for the children who actually developed narcolepsy as a result of the pandemic's vaccine. It wasn't just children now. I'll get to that in a minute. There are 2 potential routes in the UK anyway for vaccine injury compensation. The first is the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme, which is a statutory scheme that provides a one-off tax-free payment of £120,000 to individuals who are severely disabled as a result of vaccination. I didn't know this existed because I'm actually vaccine injured and I didn't know this existed. It's
there you go.
There you go.
Oh,
It's only
there you
about
go.
120,000. They're probably not giving me it because you'll find out how difficult it is in a minute.
Yeah.
It's also possible to make a claim for compensation against the manufacturer in civil courts, although they've got indemnity for certain things and they're not liable. That shouldn't even be a thing and exist, but it is.
No, they don't make anything easy.
Yeah.
So on February 9th of 2017, the Court of Appeal ruled against the Department for Work and Pensions, the DWP. In an appeal, it had brought against paying £120,000 vaccine injury compensation to a 7-year-old boy who developed narcolepsy after having the pandemic's swine flu vaccination in 2009. The anonymous child, known as John, for the proceedings, they didn't want to use his real name, obviously, is now 14 years old and was vaccinated with pandemics against swine flu H1N1 in December of 2009. And within a few months, he developed symptoms of narcolepsy and was later formally diagnosed with the condition. In January 2012, John applied to the DWP for compensation under
his parents, because he was 3. Yeah. I wrote this wrong. It was his parents did it in his behalf.
Okay. So they applied for the compensation under the statutory scheme, and the DWP accepted that he had been properly diagnosed with narcolepsy, and that on the balance of probability, his narcolepsy had been caused by the vaccination. However, the DWP said this was not a severe disability, and compensation was denied.
That's just typical, though. You're not in the UK, Danielle, but the DWP, if there's a way of them not paying somebody, they'll find it.
They're going to find that little loophole.
Yeah, they're disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
So John subsequently appealed the decision to the first tier tribunal, which in September 2014 ordered the DWP to pay out, as it found John's narcolepsy was indeed severe. The DWP refused to pay out and appealed to the upper tribunal, arguing that only problems John had at the time could be taken into account and not the future impact of his condition, even though he was a child.
He's permanently disabled.
And he's a child.
Being a baby from a vaccine, but we're only going to take into account what's wrong with him at the moment and not the fact that this is going to destroy the rest of his life. He's got a permanent severe disability, but just ignore that.
See, that's very similar where people get out of court with them crimes that they do, and then nothing can be taken into account from previously from the court case before because they wiggle out of it. And this is the same kind of thing.
He's got a severe lifelong disability.
Yeah.
How can they not take into account the future impact of that condition on his life?
That's the whole point of it, to give him compensation so that he can be taken care of, right?
They're disgusting. They're absolutely disgusting.
So that approach has now been rejected by the Court of Appeal, bringing welcome relief to those who developed narcolepsy as a result of taking the swine flu vaccination and who have been, well, actually, I should go back to the previous one, right? In 2015 in June, the upper tribunal rejected the DWP submission.
Thank God.
And they dismissed its appeal, prompting the DWP to make the £120,000 compensation to John. However, the DWP then went to the Court of Appeal, maintaining that the proper approach to assessment of disability is to ignore any aspects of the disability that may be experienced in the future.
That's not the proper approach. That's the disgusting approach.
It is. So that approach has now been, like I said, rejected by the Court of Appeal, bringing welcome relief to those who developed narcolepsy as a result of taking the swine flu vaccination and who have been awaiting payment from the DWP since. The judgment means that the DWP now has to take into account the impact that disability has on a person's entire life and not just the impact it has on the individual at the time that their claim is made under the scheme.
As it should be, and it should have been from the bloody beginning.
Absolutely. But like we said, they were looking for that loophole any way they can get out of it. So the judgment is the first time that the UK Court of Appeal has considered a case of vaccine injury compensation under the UK statutory compensation scheme. The scheme was established in 1979 for the rare occasions when severe disablement
is caused. Word in the rare occasions. I wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah, another little loophole. When severe disablement is caused by vaccination. So the decision is now binding on all future assessments of disability brought under the Act.
So that's disgusting. They've had this in place since 1979, and it took until 2015 for them to actually acknowledge that if you are injured, the whole thing was set up for people that are injured and disabled for their life, but it took them from 1979 to 2015 to actually put something into place that actually acknowledges that you're going to have effects for the rest of your bloody life. What?
Indeed.
I can't even with some people. Can't even. Right, the British Medical Journal obtained adverse event report data from GlaxoSmithKline and concluded an analysis of that data. That showed that pandemics was associated with adverse events much more frequently than the other two H1N1 vaccines produced by GlaxoSmithKline. And why are they producing 3 different vaccines for the same thing? I have no idea, but they did. The risk of adverse events after pandemics was more than 5 times higher than the risk of the other 2 vaccines for the same illness by the same company. Vaccination had continued. This is an important bit. Listen to this. Vaccination had continued after the figures that allowed this analysis became available. So they knew this, that it was 5 times more likely to cause things, but they continued distributing it and vaccinating people with it. In the Irish Parliament, somebody called Claire Daly commented that the health service executive decided to purchase Pandemrix and continued to distribute it even after they knew it was dangerous and untested, and before most of the public in Ireland had received it. So nobody'd had it yet. Very few people had had it. They knew that it was going to cause these problems. It was 5 times more likely to cause these problems, and yet they distributed it and gave it to people anyway.
That is so criminal. That is so
Anyway.
criminal.
So there were multiple legal cases by individuals who attributed medical conditions to the Pandemrix vaccine. Only one very well-known example, I remember this at the time, was the case of a nurse. Her name was Katie Clark, and she actually took her own life. She jumped off the roof of, I believe it was a shopping centre, and took her life after developing narcolepsy. And she was getting severe symptoms of it and sleep paralysis, and it destroyed her life. She didn't actually want the Pandemrix vaccine at the time, but because she was a nurse, she had been forced to take it, or they told her that she was going to lose her job, and she ended up not able to work anyway and having a very miserable quality of life. And she ended up taking her own life because of this, because they forced her to take this against her will.
Yeah, it's like deja vu, isn't it?
In August 2010, Swedish Medical Products Agency, MPA, and the Finnish National Institute for Health and Welfare, THL, launched separate investigations regarding the development of narcolepsy as a possible side effect from the Pandemrix vaccine in children. In the summer of 2010, the MPA and THL received reports from Swedish and Finnish healthcare professionals that narcolepsy was a suspected adverse drug reaction to the Pandemrix vaccination. The reports concern children, these particular reports concern children between the ages of 12 and 16. So quite a big age range is left out there, because it was given to everybody.
Right.
Whose symptoms occurred between 1 to 2 months after vaccination. The symptoms were later confirmed to be compatible with narcolepsy. Consumer reports describing similar symptoms were also received. Both organisations, in consultation with external experts, have assessed a possible relationship between the vaccine and the reported reactions. Both MPA and THL have been in contact with other EU member states to inquire whether there have been any similar reports in other countries. THL recommended that further Pandemrix vaccinations be discontinued pending further investigation into the 15 cases of recently vaccinated children. This was at the time. There was 15 recent cases, so they'd stop. They said stop. That was in late 2009, early 2010. THL later raised this figure from 15 to 17. The expected average occurrence is about 6 cases, according to them, apparently in Finland, although in our countries it was a hell of a lot more. In Sweden, MPA had discovered at that point 12 confirmed cases with another 12 suspected cases, and that was only within a few months at the end of 1 year.
It's well more than that.
Additionally, MPA says it's aware of individual case reports from France, Norway, and Germany. So it was happening all over Europe.
Well more than that. I can't believe that's all
they these knew, they knew it was 5 times more likely to do this than the other. This company created 3 different shots for the same strain of this flu. 3 different shots. And they knew that one of these 3 shots was 5 times more likely to cause these severe adverse reactions, and yet they still distributed it. And the governments that took it also knew and were informed about this, and then they still bought it and then gave it out and then told everybody to take it, give it to the children. And if you're a nurse or you're in certain professions, if you don't take it, you're going to lose your job. And they fucking knew.
Yeah, well. Like I said, deja vu. Look at what we just had happen here over the
last. Kept the mouth shut.
Yeah. Well, to kind of finish up on part 1 here, on August 27th of 2010, the European Medicines Agency announced that the agency's Committee for Medicinal Products for Human Use would be launching a review of pandemics in light of the limited number of cases. I like how they say
Hey, that's what they said.
Bullshit.
Limited number of cases. One is too many. One is too many.
Yeah. And those were reported in Finland and Sweden, so as to determine whether there is evidence for a causal association.
That's
Or
their
causal.
word.
Causal association.
Casual association.
Causal association. So in August 2010, the Swedish MPA issued a statement which included the following. An investigation is ongoing, but any relationship between the vaccination and the reported symptoms cannot be concluded.
Of course not.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
But it will not.
If you actually look at charities that specialize in narcolepsy, they will tell you that there was a massive rise between 2009 onwards in cases of narcolepsy, and
it doesn't take a lot of work.
it doesn't take a bloody genius, does it?
Apparently it did, because if you're clever, you're supposed to believe all this crap, because that's what they tell you as well.
Doesn't take a genius.
Yeah.
Well, in February of 2011, THL concluded that there is a clear connection between the pandemic's vaccination campaign of 2009 and 2010 and the narcolepsy epidemic in Finland. The probability of developing narcolepsy was determined to be 9 times higher in those who received the pandemic's vaccination than those who did not. A total of 152 cases of narcolepsy have been found in Finland during 2009 to 2010. And 90% of them had received the pandemic's vaccination.
Yeah.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
That's a coincidence, isn't
and
it?
authorities believe that the number of cases may still increase, which
And it did. It did.
So at the end of March 2011, an MPA press release stated, results from a Swedish registry-based cohort study indicate a 4-fold increased risk of narcolepsy in children and adolescents between the age of 20 vaccinated with pandemics compared to
completely like Finland saying you're 9 times more likely.
Yeah.
Sweden saying you're 4 times more likely.
Yeah.
We've not actually got an exact figure.
No.
And the actual company's saying you're 5 times more likely, which they knew beforehand. Before it had even been put into anybody's bodies.
Just like I said, it's criminal. It's the intent there is just.
They don't give a shit. All they give a shit about is this. That's all they give a shit about.
Yeah. So the same study found no increased risk in adults who were vaccinated with pandemics, while
despite the fact that multiple adults got it, including a woman that jumped off a shopping centre because it destroyed her life.
Right. While cautioning that the increase in risk for children is still uncertain in magnitude, it recommends they not be vaccinated.
So they're not taking responsibility. They're like, well, there's probably nothing to see here. Nothing's happening to adults. The risk in children is not even certain. We're not even sure about it. But maybe you're better off not doing it. Why would they just take responsibility?
Yeah.
You're destroying people's lives.
Unbelievable.
You're destroying people's lives for fucking profit.
Yeah.
For profit.
And control, and probably, as we know, to do with the governments and things like that. It's political.
It's not just
It's everything.
Yeah. It's not just for profit. It's like human guinea pigs.
Well, I was actually. I mean, I was injured by a seasonal flu shot in 2008, and it gave me ME. I actually ended up getting a viral infection in my spine. It was the worst virus I've ever had in my life after getting this flu shot. And I'm vaccine injured. I didn't know you can go and get compensation because they don't tell you that shit. But I'm actually vaccine injured. And that's not one of the ones that's like you can look up. No. There's no figures for that one. There's no people going like, oh my God, this caused X amount of people to get this. But it happens. Yeah. It happens. And then, like, because of what happened in 2020, if you're reluctant to then go and get one of these things done because you were injured in the past or because you're like looking at this shit and seeing what they've done just in like 10 years ago with the last pandemic.
Yeah.
you're like a criminal.
A pariah.
Society's like turned you into a pariah, mainly because of the media, because you don't want to go and get injured again because you're already dealing with illness for the last time that you took one of these things. It's just fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, even their own words aren't right, because like at the time when I was fighting about certain things, and that they said, don't listen to this, don't listen to that, go to our website, read the official information about it, and blah blah blah. It told me the dead opposite to what they were saying. That was saying, if you're on this medication, which I was on, you should not be taking it. Can this cause this? Not enough information is available at this time. Yet apparently that was all tried and tested at the time, and this is the problem.
I actually
people just follow it.
I actually didn't want in 2008 to get the flu shot that I got. I was guilted into it because I was caring for my elderly parents at the time, and we had a family GP that we'd had our entire like since I was a kid, and he guilted me into it that I didn't need it myself, but I needed to get it to protect my parents, and that's why I went and done it. And I ended up with a lifelong illness because of it.
See, the thing is that they say, "Oh, it's just,"
and that's kind of what they've done in 2020. You've got to do it to protect other people.
They try and claim it's conspiracy is crap and all this stuff, but then we can see here we just listed this is fact.
That's just them. Just you wait till next week when we get into the actual oral medications.
Yeah, Jamie, you're right.
Yeah. So some of the shit that's going on with oral medications and still goes on oral medications is just as disgusting.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm now very angry and annoyed and pissed off.
Well,
so
you
Danielle,
have a right
can you
to
wrap
be.
this up because I'm going to go and chew the wall or something.
Headbutt the wall until you get a headache.
Yeah, I might go and drill a hole in my own skull.
No, you have a right to be. I mean, you're personally affected by this.
Haven't you got a hand drill?
No. No. But anyway, that's part one, like as Lisa mentioned, of what we're going to talk about here with Big Pharma and its history and the beginning of things. But next week, stay tuned, and we're going to talk more specifically about some medications and
one that you probably have all heard of, thalidomide, but there is more.
Yeah, including, and I think we're going to show it if we didn't already. There is a supposed statue honoring.
Oh my God! Yeah,
poor people. Well,
just wait till next week when we tell you about the apology.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us once again. Please hit the thumbs up, and subscribe and share, please.
Yeah, and get like a couple of your friends to subscribe, and then we'll be on 100, and that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be great to hit 100.
If I could be on 100 next week, I'll be very happy. I need to be cheered up after this shit.
Yeah, let's cheer Lisa up. Let's get us to 100.
Yeah.
And we will see you next Tuesday.
See you later.
Yes, we will. Yes,
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I've got to press the button,
You got to press the button.
Yes, forgot about that. I'm that pissed off I forgot. See you later.